Kira Caldwell clutched the thick manila folder to her chest as she marched through the gleaming lobby of Livingston Enterprises, determination fueling each step. Today was the day she would confront Logan Livingston, the billionaire oil magnate who had steamrolled her family's environmental consulting firm into near bankruptcy. She had spent 6 months building her case against his company's unethical practices, and nothing, not even the intimidating security guards eyeing her suspiciously, would stop her from delivering justice. The elevator ride to the 35th floor felt like ascending to battle. Kira rehearsed her opening statement in her head, smoothing the front of her navy blazer as she watched the numbers climb. She had fought tooth and nail to secure this meeting, leveraging her company's remaining industry contacts and a particularly sympathetic board member who'd granted her 15 minutes on Livingston's calendar. 15 minutes to save everything her parents had built. When the doors slid open, Kira stepped into a reception area dripping with wealth. Expensive abstract art adorned walls of warm wood, and a stunning receptionist with perfectly styled hair looked up with a practiced smile. "I'm Kira Caldwell for Mr. Livingston," she announced, proud that her voice didn't betray her nerves. "Please have a seat, Miss Caldwell. Mr. Livingston is running slightly behind schedule." Of course he was. Men like Logan Livingston considered time a commodity they alone controlled. Kira settled into a leather chair, trying not to fidget as she waited. 20 minutes later, well beyond her scheduled start time, the receptionist finally gestured toward the imposing double doors. "Mr. Livingston will see you now." The office was exactly what she'd expected. Expansive windows offering a panoramic view of downtown Houston, furniture that probably cost more than her apartment, and at its center, the man himself. Logan Livingston stood with his back to her, phone pressed to his ear, his tall frame silhouetted against the morning sunlight. "I don't care what it takes. Get it done," he said firmly before ending the call and turning to face her. Kira had prepared herself for many things, but not for how unexpectedly young he appeared. At 34, Logan Livingston had inherited his father's oil empire 5 years ago and had since tripled its value. Pictures in business magazines hadn't captured his presence, the intense gray eyes, the strong jawline, or the way he carried himself with absolute confidence. "Miss Caldwell," he said, extending his hand. "I apologize for keeping you waiting. You have my undivided attention for the next 10 minutes. She ignored his hand. "I scheduled 15. A hint of surprise flickered across his face, quickly replaced by amusement. "Then you'd better make them count." Kira wasted no time. "Your company's systematic targeting of environmental consultants who oppose your Gulf expansion is not only unethical but potentially illegal." She opened her folder, laying out documents on his immaculate desk. "Caldwell Environmental has lost 3 major contracts in the past year due to your interference." Logan Livingston didn't bother looking at her evidence. Instead, he studied her with unsettling intensity. "Business is competition, Miss Caldwell. Your firm lost those contracts because we offered better services at better prices. Better prices because you're operating at a loss to deliberately undercut us," Kira countered. "You're using your billions to eliminate obstacles to your expansion plans, regardless of the environmental impact." Logan leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. "And what exactly do you hope to achieve with this meeting? A tearful confession, a promise to play nice?" "I want you to stop targeting my company," Kira said firmly. "And I want compensation for the contracts we lost due to your predatory practices." A laugh escaped him, warm and genuine, surprising them both. "Or what? Or I take this evidence to the Energy Commission, the press, and every environmental organization from here to Washington." For the first time, Logan Livingston looked genuinely interested. He gathered her documents, flipping through them with increasing focus. "You've been thorough," he finally said. "I've had to be. My parents built this company from nothing. I won't let you destroy it." Logan stood, buttoning his impeccably tailored suit jacket. "Miss Caldwell, you've presented some concerning allegations. I'll need time to review them properly." I'm not leaving without an answer, Kira insisted, rising to face him. Then how about dinner? Tonight we can discuss this further. The invitation caught her off guard. I didn't come here for a date, Mr. Livingston. Not a date, a negotiation. 7 o'clock at Aveline's. He handed her back the folder. Bring your evidence and your terms. Kira hesitated. Was this another delay tactic? But she needed this resolution too desperately to refuse. Fine, 7 o'clock. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. And Miss Caldwell, that blazer navy suits you. It brings out the fight in your eyes. Kira felt heat rush to her cheeks as she exited without looking back. Logan Livingston watched the door close behind Kira Caldwell, intrigued by the woman who had just stormed his office with more courage than most of his executives combined. He pressed the intercom. Angela, clear my afternoon and get me everything we have on Caldwell Environmental Consulting. Within the hour, his desk was covered with reports. Caldwell Environmental was exactly what she described, a respected, family-owned firm that had indeed lost several key contracts after Livingston Enterprises entered the consultation space 18 months ago. What caught Logan's attention, however, was their reputation. Despite being small, they had an impressive record of accuracy in their environmental impact assessments. Several major projects had been improved based on their recommendations, saving companies millions while reducing environmental damage. His phone rang. Your 3 o'clock is waiting, Angela reminded him. Cancel it, Logan replied, still studying the Caldwell file. And make a reservation at Aveline's for tonight, private table. Something about Kira Caldwell's passionate defense of her family business resonated with him in unexpected ways. He hadn't entered the environmental consultation field to destroy small companies. It had been a strategic diversification recommended by his board. If they were using questionable tactics, he needed to know. And if he was being completely honest with himself, he wanted to see those fiery blue eyes again. Kira paced her apartment, alternating between rehearsing her talking points and wondering if she was making a catastrophic mistake by having dinner with Logan Livingston. Her best friend and business partner, Talia, sat on her bed, watching the parade of rejected outfits accumulating on the floor. You're overthinking this, Talia said. It's a business meeting, not prom. At the most expensive restaurant in Houston, Kira countered. I can't show up looking like I can't afford the bread basket, so wear the black dress, professional but not trying too hard. Kira pulled out the knee-length sheath dress with a modest neckline. It was her go-to for important client meetings, elegant without being showy. And remember, Talia added, don't let him charm you into backing down. Men like Logan Livingston are used to getting their way. Trust me, charm is the last thing I'm worried about, Kira lied, remembering his parting comment about her blazer. I'm going to present our terms, and he can either agree or prepare for a public relations nightmare. But when Kira arrived at Aveline's, her confidence wavered. The restaurant practically oozed exclusivity. From the valet who took her modest sedan without judgment to the maitre d', who escorted her to a secluded table where Logan Livingston was already waiting. He stood as she approached, and she noticed he'd changed from his earlier suit into something even more expensive looking, if that was possible. The charcoal gray fabric complemented his eyes, which brightened with unmistakable appreciation as they took her in. Miss Caldwell, he greeted, pulling out her chair. Thank you for coming. This is still a negotiation, Mr. Livingston, she reminded him, placing her folder beside her plate. Of course, but there's no rule saying negotiations can't be civilized, he gestured to the waiter. Wine. Just water for now, Kira replied. She needed her wits about her. Logan ordered water for them both, then surprised her by saying, I reviewed your documents this afternoon. And, Kira leaned forward, and you've identified some concerning patterns. I've spent the day looking into our acquisition of those contracts. The waiter returned with water and menus, interrupting what felt like a pivotal moment. After they ordered, Kira choosing the least expensive entree while Logan requested the chef's selection for them, both he continued. My vice president of operations, Marcus Delvin, oversaw our expansion into environmental consulting. The tactics you've outlined don't align with how I do business. Kira raised an eyebrow. Are you suggesting you didn't know? I'm acknowledging the possibility. His directness surprised her. Livingston Enterprises has 17 divisions. I can't personally review every contract strategy. Convenient, she remarked. Realistic, he countered. But that doesn't absolve me of responsibility. Their first course arrived delicate scallops with some kind of foam that looked too artistic to eat. Kira waited until the server departed before asking, "So what are you proposing?" "I want to understand exactly what happened," Logan said, his expression turning serious. "And I'd like your help to do it." "My help?" Kira nearly choked on her water. "Nobody knows the contracts you lost better than you do. Nobody understands the environmental consulting space better than Caldwell Environmental." He leaned forward. "Work with me for 1 month. Help me audit our environmental division. If we find evidence of the predatory practices you've alleged, I'll make it right." Kira studied him, searching for deception. "And if I refuse? Then I'll conduct the investigation anyway, but without your expertise, it could take months." His gray eyes held hers. "During which time your company continues to struggle." It was a shrewd observation. Caldwell Environmental had enough runway for perhaps 3 more months before they'd need to start laying people off. "What would this arrangement look like?" she asked cautiously. "You'd have an office at Livingston Enterprises, full access to our contract records, communication with our team. You'd report directly to me." The first genuine smile crossed his face, transforming his features. "And I'd gain the benefit of working with someone who clearly isn't afraid to tell me when I'm wrong." Despite herself, Kira felt a smile tugging at her lips. "You don't strike me as someone who enjoys being challenged." "On the contrary, Miss Caldwell. The right kind of challenge is exactly what keeps life interesting." There was something in his voice, a warmth that hadn't been there in his office earlier, that made Kira's heartbeat quicken. She reminded herself that charm was just another negotiation tactic for men like him. 1 month, she finally said. "And I want a non-interference agreement for Caldwell Environmental while we conduct this investigation." "Done. And I need a written promise that if we find evidence of wrongdoing, you'll make restitution for the contracts we lost." "I'll have the paperwork drawn up tomorrow." Logan raised his water glass. "To unexpected partnerships." Kira hesitated before clinking her glass against his. "Don't mistake this for partnership yet, Mr. Livingston. I'm still your adversary until proven otherwise." His smile deepened. "I wouldn't have it any other way, Miss Caldwell." The rest of dinner passed in a strange combination of professional discussion and moments of surprising personal connection. Kira learned that Logan had been groomed since childhood to take over his father's business, but had initially rebelled, spending 3 years working on oil rigs around the world before reluctantly accepting his destiny. In turn, she found herself sharing stories of growing up with environmentalist parents who had taught her to respect the delicate balance between industry and nature. By the time dessert arrived, a chocolate creation that probably cost as much as her monthly grocery budget, Kira was unsettled by how much she was enjoying his company. "So tomorrow," Logan said as they walked out of the restaurant, 9 a.m. "I'll be there," Kira promised, surprised when he personally walked her to her car instead of calling for the valet. "Drive safely, Kira," he said, using her first name for the first time that evening. The sound of it in his deep voice sent an unexpected shiver through her. "Good night, Mr. Livingston." "Logan," he corrected. "If we're going to work together, I think we can use first names." As she drove away, Kira tried to ignore the flutter in her stomach. This was business, she reminded herself, just business. The next morning, Logan personally introduced Kira to his executive team, making it clear that she had his full authority to investigate the environmental division. She was given a spacious office just down the hall from his own, complete with an assistant and unrestricted access to company records. "Marcus Delvin should be back from our Dallas office tomorrow," Logan informed her. "He's the one who spearheaded the expansion into environmental consulting." "I look forward to meeting him," Kira replied, already organizing the files she'd brought from her own office. Working at Livingston Enterprises was a culture shock. Everything moved faster, with more resources than she could have imagined. When she mentioned needing comparative data, an analyst appeared within minutes. When she requested access to specific contract negotiations, the records were delivered immediately. And then there was Logan himself. He stopped by her office multiple times that first day, checking on her progress, answering questions, and once, bringing her coffee, something his assistant informed her he'd never done for anyone before. "You take it black, right?" he'd asked, setting down the steaming mug. "How did you know?" "You seem like someone who prefers things straightforward, no sweeteners or distractions." The observation was oddly perceptive, making Kira wonder what else he'd noticed about her. By the end of her first week, Kira had assembled a troubling picture. There was indeed a pattern of Livingston Enterprises targeting Caldwell Environmental's potential clients, offering services at significantly reduced rates, sometimes at a clear loss. The trail led directly to Marcus Delvin, who had established the division's aggressive growth strategy. What she couldn't determine was Logan's involvement. Had he ordered these tactics, or was he truly unaware? On Friday afternoon, Logan appeared in her doorway. "Dinner tonight. You can update me on what you've found." "I shouldn't," Kira hesitated. "It might compromise the investigation." "We could call it a progress report," he suggested with a smile that was becoming dangerously familiar. "Besides, have you even left this office before 7 all week?" He was right. She'd been working late every night, diving into the investigation with single-minded focus. "Fine," she conceded. "But somewhere casual this time. I can't handle another 5-course production." Logan's face brightened. "I know just the place." To Kira's surprise, casual meant Logan picking her up in his personal car, a surprisingly understated luxury sedan rather than the flashy sports car she might have expected, and driving them to a small Italian restaurant in a neighborhood she'd never visited. "Best pasta in Houston," he promised as they were seated at a corner table. "And the owner won't let anyone take my picture here so we can actually have a conversation." "Does that happen a lot?" Kira asked. "People taking your picture at dinner, often enough to be annoying," he shrugged. The price of being a Livingston. For the first time, Kira considered how isolating his position must be. Constant scrutiny, never knowing if people wanted his company or his influence. Over homemade pasta and rich red wine, Kira shared her findings, watching Logan's expression darken as she outlined Delvin's tactics. "He's been systematically targeting smaller environmental firms, not just yours," she explained. "The pattern suggests he's trying to eliminate opposition to your Gulf expansion plans by bringing the environmental assessment in-house, where it can be controlled." Logan set down his fork. "That was never the intention. We expanded into environmental consulting to better integrate sustainability into our projects, not to manipulate outcomes." "The evidence suggests otherwise," Kira said gently. "I need to speak with Delvin." Logan's jaw tightened. "This stops now." The conviction in his voice made Kira believe him, despite her lingering doubts. As they finished their meal, the conversation shifted to more personal topics. Logan asked about her parents, who had retired to Colorado 2 years ago, leaving Kira to run their company. She found herself sharing her fears about failing them, about letting down the employees who depended on her. "You won't fail," Logan said with such certainty that Kira almost believed him. "You're too determined. Determination doesn't always guarantee success." "No, but it guarantees you'll go down fighting." His eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. "And something tells me you're quite formidable in a fight." The comment startled a genuine laugh from her. "You would know." They lingered over coffee, talking about everything from their favorite books to places they'd traveled. When Logan finally drove her home, Kira was surprised to realize they'd spent 3 hours together, and only a small portion had been about work. "I'll see you Monday," he said, walking her to her door. "And thank you, Kira, for your honesty." For a charged moment, they stood facing each other in the soft glow of her porch light. Kira felt a pull toward him that had nothing to do with business negotiations. "Good night, Logan," she finally said, unlocking her door before she could do something foolish. The second week brought a confrontation with Marcus Delvin, who defended his aggressive strategies as standard competitive practices. Logan, to Kira's surprise, didn't merely accept his executive's explanation. "Show me where I authorized targeting specific companies," Logan demanded in a tense meeting where Kira presented her evidence. "It was implied in the growth targets," Delvin argued. "You wanted rapid expansion, I wanted ethical expansion," Logan cut him off. "Miss Caldwell has shown me at least 5 instances where we deliberately undercut her company with below-cost bids. That's not competition, it's predatory." The meeting ended with Delvin on administrative leave pending further investigation, and Logan looking more troubled than Kira had ever seen him. "I should have been paying closer attention," he said later in her office. "I got so focused on the broader company strategy that I missed what was happening right under my nose." "That's why big companies have corporate governance structures," Kira pointed out. "No one person can oversee everything. Still, these are my father's legacy and my responsibility." The vulnerability in his admission touched Kira. For the first time, she saw beyond the billionaire to the man carrying the weight of an empire on his shoulders. As the third week began, their working relationship evolved. Logan started consulting Kira on other environmental initiatives, valuing her perspective on sustainability practices. They often worked late into the evening, sharing takeout in his office as they discussed how Livingston Enterprises could become a leader in responsible energy development rather than an obstacle. "My father would have hated all this environmental focus," Logan admitted one night as they reviewed proposals. "He was old school drill, extract, profit." "And what about you?" Kira asked. "What kind of legacy do you want?" Logan looked thoughtful. "I want to build something that lasts, something that balances progress with responsibility." His gaze met hers. "Working with you has clarified that vision." "Is that why you keep finding excuses for us to work late?" Kira teased, trying to lighten the sudden intensity between them. "Maybe I just enjoy your company," he replied with a smile that made her heart skip. By the fourth week, Kira had compiled a comprehensive report documenting all instances where Livingston Enterprises had unfairly targeted her company and others. She had also, reluctantly, developed a detailed proposal for how the company could restructure its environmental division to operate more ethically. "This is excellent work," Logan said, reviewing her findings. "I've already instructed legal to prepare compensation agreements for the affected companies, including yours." "So our arrangement is coming to an end," Kira noted, surprised by the disappointment she felt. "Our business arrangement, yes." Logan set down the report. "But I was hoping our personal relationship might just be beginning." Kira felt her cheeks warm. "Logan, have dinner with me tomorrow night," he interrupted. Not as colleagues discussing business, but as Logan and Kira. The invitation hung between them, full of possibility. "I've spent my career fighting against companies like yours," Kira reminded him. "And I've spent the past month learning why that fight matters." He moved closer. "I'm not asking you to change who you are, I'm asking for a chance to show you who I am, beyond Livingston Enterprises." Against her better judgment, Kira agreed. Their first official date, was unlike anything Kira had experienced. Logan took her sailing on his modest boat, modest by billionaire standards, which still meant it was luxurious by anyone else's. They spent the day on Galveston Bay, talking and laughing with a freedom that had been building between them for weeks. "When did you know?" Kira asked as they watched the sunset from the deck, the water gilded with orange light. "Know what?" "That you were interested in me as more than an adversary or consultant." Logan considered this. "Probably that first dinner at Aveline's, you were so fiercely determined to protect what you believed in." His fingers brushed hers. "I found that incredibly attractive. Even though I was essentially threatening your company, especially because of that," he laughed. "No one challenges me like you do, Kira. You make me see things differently." As the stars emerged above them, Logan finally kissed her a gentle, questioning kiss that quickly deepened when she responded. Kira knew she was crossing a line she'd promised herself she wouldn't cross. But in that moment, with the water lapping against the boat and Logan's arms around her, she couldn't remember why it had seemed so important to keep her distance. In the weeks that followed, their relationship blossomed in private even as they maintained professional boundaries in public. Livingston Enterprises made restitution to Caldwell Environmental and the other affected companies. Marcus Delvin was quietly let go, and Logan appointed Kira as a special consultant to help reshape the environmental division. But after hours, they explored their growing feelings for each other. Logan showed Kira his world, the quiet luxuries he preferred over flashy displays of wealth, the charitable foundations he supported without publicity, the small ranch outside the city where he went to escape the pressures of being a Livingston. In turn, Kira introduced him to her world community environmental projects, the small team of dedicated scientists at Caldwell Environmental, weekend hikes in nature preserves she fought to protect. 3 months after their first confrontation in his office, Logan invited Kira to dinner at his penthouse apartment. She arrived to find the space transformed with candles and flowers, a private chef preparing their meal in the kitchen. "What's the occasion?" she asked as he handed her a glass of champagne. "I wanted to celebrate something," Logan replied, leading her to the balcony overlooking the city lights. "And what are we celebrating?" "The day you stormed into my office and changed my life." He set down his glass and took both her hands in his. "I was lost, Kira, building my father's vision, not my own. You challenged me to be better as a businessman and as a man." "Logan," she whispered, touched by his words, "I've been thinking about legacy lately," he continued, "about what I want to leave behind. And I've realized that all the business success in the world means nothing without someone to share it with." He reached into his pocket and dropped to one knee, revealing a ring that caught the candlelight. "Someone who will keep challenging me, keep making me better. Someone I love with all my heart." Tears filled Kira's eyes as he continued, "Kira Caldwell, will you marry me?" "Yes," she answered without hesitation. "Yes, I will." As Logan slipped the ring onto her finger, a sustainably sourced diamond, he assured her and pulled her into his arms. Kira marveled at the journey that had brought them here. She had walked into Livingston Enterprises determined to take on a billionaire, never imagining she'd end up falling in love with him. 1 year later, Logan and Kira were married in an intimate ceremony at his ranch, surrounded by family and friends. Their wedding gifts to each other reflected their shared values. Logan established the Caldwell Livingston Foundation for Environmental Innovation, while Kira surprised him with news that she was pregnant with their first child. Together, they transformed both their companies, merging Caldwell Environmental with Livingston's division to create an industry-leading consultancy that set new standards for corporate environmental responsibility. Their partnership in business proved as successful as their marriage, demonstrating that profit and principle could coexist. On their first anniversary, as they watched their infant daughter sleep in her crib, Kira reflected on the confrontation that had started it all. "Can you imagine if I hadn't been stubborn enough to force that meeting?" she asked, leaning into Logan's embrace. "I can't imagine my life without you in it," he answered, kissing her temple. "You came to take down my company and ended up saving my soul instead." "And you," Kira replied, turning in his arms to face him, "taught me that sometimes what looks like an adversary is actually your perfect partner." As their lips met in a tender kiss, both knew that the greatest takeover hadn't been of a business, but of their hearts, a merger that had created something far more valuable than either could have built alone.